Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the CW Clinic. I'm here with two very special guests, two extraordinary men, Dr. Ryan Attar and Dr. Matt Paterna. Today we're going to discuss, to include one of us getting the vaccination and two of us not, all of our perspectives on the topic, on COVID, on the business behind COVID, on the pandemic, what you might see in the future, and some awesome things along the way.
In 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the CW Clinic, episode 86. I'm here with two very special guests, two extraordinary men, Dr. Ryan Attar and Dr. Matt Paterna. Now, before I introduce them, we recorded this show 2 months ago. However, we had some technical difficulties. Ryan told me that Pfizer hacked into downtime and took it away because we would have enlightened everyone prior to the COVID vaccinations, which are now happening in America, let alone the rest of the world. And today we're going to discuss several things, to include one of us getting the vaccination and two of us not, all of our perspectives on the topic, on COVID, on the business behind COVID, on the pandemic, what you might see in the future, and some awesome things along the way. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything, I will introduce both Dr. Attar and Dr. Paterna individually. They've both been on the show prior. We do have their episode numbers.
Dr. Attar, episode 47, and Paterna, 23 and 45.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Downtime. Thank you. Yeah, so if you guys want to hear what they have to say outside of, and you really should listen to them. They're very, very, very prominent doctors in their fields and our community, and have helped me greatly with my health when it comes to my spine and my food sensitivities. By the way, I had some dairy again. Mm-hmm. I'm doing okay.
Nice. Your gut's healing.
Yeah, my guts. It only took about a year. Yeah. I guess I was a little imbalanced.
Yeah.
But long story short, they helped me very much so. Matt's been working on my spine for about a decade. Ryan's been helping me with my sensitivities for about a year. And now, without further ado, Dr. Ryan Attar, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm really excited for this second show.
Yeah. I mean, a lot has changed since we last talked, and more to talk about, and it should be interesting.
And you specialize in diabetes, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm a naturopathic physician and practice in Fairfield, and diabetes is probably the bulk of my patient population. I see a lot of chronic ailments like yourself with gut issues and food sensitivities, and that's basically what I do.
And your practice has MDs as well, correct?
We're an integrative clinic, and we have an MD on our staff, we have another ND, and we have a chiropractor as well.
So you have a team of doctors to help educate and heal.
Kind of a one-stop shop for everything, yeah.
And you've been doing it for how long?
Our clinic has been open for 2 years. I've been a practicing naturopathic physician for 3 years.
Yeah. And you're a jits guy?
I am, not since COVID. I haven't done jiu-jitsu, but blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Miss it, and hopefully things will start getting back to normal so I can do it again.
Is your body feeling any better with no jiu-jitsu?
I never really got injured too bad from jiu-jitsu.
I guess that's just a big guy thing in jiu-jitsu.
I am back into CrossFit, which has injured me in the past.
Imagine that.
So I may be stopping by Dr. Matt at some point to correct anything
Absolutely.
And before I want to mention one more thing before I introduce Matt. You're also a veteran and served combat tours for the United States of America.
Correct. Yep.
How many tours?
Just one.
Just one?
Yeah, that was enough.
Just one. Okay, just one. Where were you?
Iraq.
What years?
2003. It was basically at the start. 2003, 2004.
I had a conversation with a what's it called? A Desert Storm veteran. Yeah. Recently, 2 days ago, I was snowboarding, and someone saw my license plate when I was putting my boots on, and the whole parking lot was talking about the Purple Heart on my license plate. And the guy directly behind me also had a Purple Heart and came over and introduced himself.
Oh, wow.
And he took some shrapnel in Desert Storm.
Wow.
And he reminded us that we were the second round in Iraq.
Sure.
You weren't the first, which most people think 2003 was the first round in Iraq. However, that was the second.
Yes.
Because Desert Storm was 1991 under General Schwarzkopf and Mr. Bush Sr.,
Correct.
if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you, both of you.
Yeah. So, yeah. And you were a captain.
I was. Please don't hate me for that.
I don't hate you. No. My captains and I had great relationships.
Yeah, as did I with my troops.
Yeah. I think good officers were humble and realized that non-commissioned officers, such as myself, sergeants,
Oh yeah,
we all had our part.
definitely.
Yeah. You guys did paperwork. We did trigger pulling.
Yes. And you know, and good officers, you know, NCOs are supposed to teach
Correct.
troops, including the officers too.
Correct.
So I always respected that.
And by no means did just NCOs pull triggers and just officers do paperwork. It was just a joke amongst the insiders, I suppose. And so thank you for your service and now and everything else you do. And now we'll introduce my longtime friends, my spine caretaker, the caretaker of my family's spines, including my sister now. Yep. What's going on, Elena? And my mother. You've been straightening my mother out for about a year now?
Yeah.
Her hips.
About 8 months, yeah.
Yeah,
She's
her hips.
doing great.
She's doing awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about her later, how healthy my mother is. But you've been taking care of the spine for my family for a long time. I know your wife. I know your kids. I know your dogs. You're a great man. You're a great doctor. And you're also the former president of the Chiropractors Council in the state of Connecticut.
Correct.
Have abundance of 500 five-star reviews.
do.
Have a great team at your practice.
Yes, multiple doctors.
We could take nothing away from. And you also lead the agenda against taking away the right from us having the ability to be vaccinated or not. I'm probably saying it wrong. Can you help me?
You nailed it.
Thank you.
So I'm the current president of Health Choice Connecticut. We are the largest, it's actually a national organization, but there's a Connecticut chapter. It's the largest parental choice and medical freedom group in the country. And our primary goal is to preserve our right to choose what vaccinations go into our bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, and not just vaccinations, any medical products, but primarily, the topic du jour being vaccines. And I think everybody in the country hears the word vaccine about 100 times a day now. So it's a pretty big topic, and one that we're gonna unpack.
Yeah, we're definitely going to unpack that. And also, guys, of course, we have downtimeTV with us. Mike is the only one on the mic of Downtime. What's up, Mike?
Hey guys, how are you?
Awesome.
So we have 4 microphones going today. Again, Paola does not have a microphone.
She keeps sneaking away from this, Chris.
She's
somehow.
you know what? She showed up
each week.
She showed up late. She has no microphone. I think we got to get rid of her. You just got to get rid of her. What do you think, Matt? Should we give her another chance?
I'll give her one more chance.
Ryan, what do you think?
One more chance.
One more chance.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right, fine. We'll give you one more chance. All right. And also, if you listen to the last show on expectations and boundaries, I just violated my boundaries. So it's a bad joke. But we have a great crew here today. Let's dive into this here. Those of you that are listening, if this is your first time listening, I like to bring very, very enlightened and very educated guests on that are, I would consider, experts and professionals in their field. And as we've discussed, both Matt and Ryan have been on this show before, and they are very willing to donate their time and their expertise to educating everyone, to include this audience. So definitely make sure that you find them on their social links that we'll get to at the end of the show. Follow them, help Matt with his cause, help Ryan, talk to Ryan, and let's get into this. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do some fundamental education on the topic, okay, of COVID and now the vaccinations. There's multiple vaccinations, and let's try to look at this in a macro perspective of the world, since this is quote unquote a world pandemic, okay? And we're also going to look at it in the micro perspective of America, okay? So that's the macro and the micro. So without further ado, Ryan, will you please educate me?
Okay. If you remember last time, I think I opened this with just the statistics on COVID, and which have increased since our last talk.
They have.
We've had another little spike in cases and deaths and all of that. So
pre or post election?
Post-election, pre-inauguration.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
It was a December
3rd.
20th or something. When did you come in? Was it before Christmas?
It was before Christmas.
So worldwide, any guess on how many deaths from COVID?
Matt, what do you think?
I think it's the 15 million. Is that what it was? Or
Deaths?
oh,
No.
your cases. Deaths. It's probably like 1 million.
2.27 million.
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the total cases worldwide is 104 million. Now USA. Any guess on the total deaths?
I would say we're starting to cross the threshold of 500,000.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the news in about 6 weeks now, but I think it's about 450, right?
Exactly 451. Yeah.
Well, excuse me, Matt. Jeez.
And then that's a total of 26 million cases in the USA. For comparison, last year we had 34,000 deaths from the flu.
Okay.
So a lot more. And then Connecticut has, actually I haven't updated the Connecticut stats, but at the last time we talked it was like 5,000 deaths in Connecticut. So it's increased from that. I'm just not sure how much.
Well, the death rate was about 250,000 last time we spoke 2 months ago, give or take. I want to say it was like 240,000.
Yeah, it jumped a lot.
So it jumped about 100%.
Right.
So in Connecticut, if we were to use the same,
Probably 10,000.
yeah, 10,000 or so, and that don't quote us on that, but we're just using the same arithmetic here.
Yeah. Okay. So since we last talked,
Yeah.
the vaccine is rolled out. I got the vaccine. I've gotten both doses of the Moderna vaccine.
Okay.
The first dose had a little soreness, and that was that. Second dose, which was like 3 or 4 weeks later, a lot of soreness. It was pretty sore. Tough. If I moved around when I was sleeping, very achy. And then the next day, my temperature went to about 100.4.
On the second dose?
On the second dose, which is expected. My immune system's kicking in. It's recognizing the vaccine and doing what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
That was it for me. The next day, I had that elevated temperature. I was really otherwise fine. I went to the gym that morning. I went to work after. Felt a little like dehydrated and a little tired. But I think that was more from rolling in my sleep all night and my arm aching and not sleeping as well. But yeah, it was basically a normal day other than that.
Well, 90% of Americans or people sleep on their side, right, Matt?
Usually.
Somewhere
Yeah,
along those
yes,
lines?
That's about right.
Yeah, so it's kind of normal, right? If you're going to sleep on the side that you got the shot on, it might actually hurt a little more.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
It hurt a lot.
You guys are the doctors, so like when I bounce it off you guys, I'm just making assumptions. If 90% of people, 90 or 95% of people sleep on their side, right? Yeah,
That sounds right. I don't have the exact number.
I think it's like 90%, and then you could quote me, Google it, and then Ryan, you're saying you slept on the side that you got the shot.
I don't think I normally sleep on the side, but if I would roll around in my sleep, it just kept waking me up.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So my argument means nothing. Okay, got it, understood.
You had mild symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I had the statistics on how many people have been vaccinated in the USA, but I didn't write that down.
But it's primary healthcare workers, correct?
Well, Connecticut has rolled into the second phase, which is over 75 anyone.
Okay, good.
They are about to start the next phase after that, which includes everyone over 65, plus any comorbidities that they, list as valid to get done of any age.
Can I make a speculation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any connection between the second round that you're talking about of people being vaccinated north of 75 years old, connected, the correlation, that age is that the majority of the people dying of COVID are north of 75 years old?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just point that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying people are going to die at 75 years old.
But they're at the most
However,
risk.
they're at the most risk.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to state, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Now, they're the one country with the most vaccines right now. Do you know who that is? Who has vaccinated the most of the population?
Can I take a guess? It's got to be a socialistic economy.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
I would say either, and these are my
It's a
guesses,
small country.
either New Zealand or Norway.
Israel.
Israel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's over half the country has at least the first dose.
I was
What percentage?
I was so wrong.
What percentage of people have been vaccinated? Not the total number.
The population
Okay.
of the population.
50% of the
Almost-
population.
Yeah, over 50% of the population.
And herd immunity is approximately 70%, right?
According to Lord Fauci, yes.
So Israel's a small country. It's like the same size and in population as New Jersey. It's like 9 million people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it appears that the vaccine's working there. Of those that got the second dose, it's only 0.04% of those people came down with COVID within the week after that.
So it's trending down.
Yeah, it's like, whatever that is, 99.9 whatever
Percent effective.
percent effective. Yeah. And they did a study with controls in Israel, and of the people studied, there was 163,000 people that got the vaccine, and 31 of those came down with COVID after. In the control group, 6,500 got COVID after.
Question, and I don't mean to interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
The vaccine that we're discussing, which might be different from the one you received,
This was in Israel. I think it's only the Pfizer.
it's only Pfizer.
Yeah.
Now, educate me. Is that the selection with the actual COVID RNA? Is it in it?
Both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine have
Both.
that spike protein RNA.
RNA.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're actually receiving COVID to a degree.
No,
No.
they're receiving an RNA that makes that spike protein.
So it's man-engineered.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's the RNA comes out of the nucleus of your cells and codes for proteins, right? And it's
For binding?
for
Like a binding of some sort?
for anything,
Okay.
for making any kinds of proteins. So the RNA comes out, it makes that, and RNA is very short-lived in the body,
Okay.
and it degrades very quickly. Body temperature degrades it. The reason why you hear about these vaccines needing to be kept so cold is because to prevent that from happening.
Okay.
So, which is kind of a good thing too. It's not staying in your body very long. It's gonna code for those spike proteins. Your body's gonna make antibodies to that. Now your body's gonna recognize the next time it sees those spike proteins,
Right.
and be ready to, build up an immune response to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I forget where I was going with this.
I interrupted you.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. You were talking about basically the trending down percentages of the vaccinated in Israel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And the reason why I interrupted you is because I think it's important for everyone to understand that there's several different vaccines.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that now the vaccines all are unanimously having, quote unquote, pieces in layman's terms of COVID in the vaccine.
Yes, the spike protein specifically.
Similar to the flu shot.
No.
Different.
Different.
Yeah.
Very different.
And this is why I ask the questions, because people like me might not understand the difference between, say, the flu shot and the COVID vaccination, which they're both vaccinations, if I'm not mistaken.
Debatable.
Debatable.
I mean, that's a different conversation. I think what we should unpack here is maybe the difference between an mRNA vaccine versus a traditional vaccine.
Right.
Perfect.
A flu vaccine, you can either get an attenuated strain of the virus, so a weakened strain, or a dead virus that you can't replicate and can't get you sick.
Okay.
Either way, your body's going to recognize those.
It's deceased.
Things in the vaccine, and then when you're presented with that virus again, it will already have antibodies.
Okay.
With the COVID vaccine, there is no COVID virus in it. It's not even those spike proteins. It's mRNA that have our cells make the spike protein, which then our immune system recognizes and builds an immune response.
It's sending a message to your DNA to do something versus...
It doesn't... That's one important thing. RNA cannot enter the nucleus of our cell where DNA is, so it can't affect our DNA. It doesn't go near our DNA.
Okay.
Things come out of the nucleus. The RNA comes out of the nucleus from the DNA to make those proteins, but doesn't go back in.
It sounds like I'm back in college, and I don't remember any of this. So thank you for explaining this to me, guys.
Another big difference between this vaccine and a lot of the other vaccines that we get is there's none of these preservatives in it. These mercury-based or aluminum-based preservatives that there's genuine concerns for injecting into our bodies. The way this vaccine is preserved is with cold, and
it's very cold, right?
Yeah. It's very cold.
Negative 30, if I remember correctly.
Which is something to keep in mind too, and could be a concern if they're not properly stored. Then maybe the vaccine won't be as potent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's good that we unpacked that and discussed that. And I completely derailed you off of talking about how Israel is the most vaccinated country.
Yeah. So they're on track to basically have the whole country vaccinated. And I guess it'll be interesting to see how it goes, both from how many people get infected and now the death rate in that country, which appears to be going down, but also potential adverse reactions to it.
So they're like the test pool of the world currently.
I think anybody getting the vaccine right now is considered to be in the test pool.
Oh,
that's my
Thankfully, all of my friendly doctors are in the test pool.
But and I think that's an important point to make here, is because what we're dealing with now is we're dealing with a vaccine, a technology, this mRNA technology, which on paper sounds really kind of cool, but really untested on the human population. You were talking about an 8-week study that happened between the months of August and October that studied 44,000 extremely healthy individuals with very few comorbidities or pre-existing conditions.
So they tested it on guys like me.
And guys like me.
Guys like us.
Yeah, that don't have any issues. So now what we're getting to see what is the effect, what is the short term, because we don't even know that, let alone the long-term effect of what this vaccine is going to do to your body. We don't have the answer to that. So, I say, hey, if you want to get it, that's great. That's your prerogative. But for those of us who are out there, and you're going to hear the word vaccine hesitancy, we're hesitant to put this into our body for a variety of reasons, whether we're concerned about, whether it's effective or safe, or whether we're concerned about the long-term effects, which there's not a single human being on the planet that can answer that question. They can barely answer the short-term effects, let alone the long-term. You're going to see more and more people say no to this. And I think that's where this conversation is going to go, is, what rights do we have? as citizens to say no to this vaccine, because right now, and again, I can't quote the exact number, but I'm hearing between 40, 50, or 60% of healthcare workers in this country are not getting the shot.
So that sounds like roughly 50%.
Yeah, if you want to just put it in the middle, we're looking at 50%. And the question is well, why are these people who you would consider to be the ones that would need it the most or would want it the most, not necessarily getting it, right? So if I'm somebody that's outside the health profession as just a regular citizen, and I'm looking at that, that's going to raise a red flag to me. That's going to say, well, wait a second, these people are at more risk. Why are some of them, or many of them, not getting the shot? And we're going to have the opportunity to have that conversation, and I'll share the reasons why I've chosen not to get it. I know that Dr. Attar has chosen to get it, and I applaud him for doing that. But I think that the big question is what is the hesitancy? Why are people starting to question whether or not we should be getting this shot?
This is a perfect example of 50%, right? We're talking about roughly 50% of healthcare workers are not getting the vaccine. We have 2 healthcare workers that are doctors here, one who has gotten it and one that will likely not. So, and this will be a great conversation for you guys with your perspective on why or why not to get the vaccine. And I think that's exactly what we should discuss. My perspective on it's completely different, and we can leave that to the end, because what's important is you're being asked, if I recall back in November, was it? You were being told or asked that you can now take the vaccine as your frontline workers?
Sure. So we all doctors, all healthcare workers received a letter in the mail from our state saying, hey, congratulations, you are in the first round, sign up here. It wasn't mandatory yet. It was volunteer. I chose not to because that was my personal choice. So the question then becomes is why would someone say no to this? Because again, half of your listeners are probably getting the vaccine, and half of them are on the fence. They don't necessarily know. So maybe we can give them some insight as to what they should be thinking about. And my perspective, and as a doctor, I never inject my opinion on somebody else. I simply ask questions. And my purpose is to educate and inspire, hopefully to inspire you to make a good health decision. And when patients ask me, should they get the vaccine, my first response to them is a question back. If you're going to get the vaccine, why are you going to get it? What is your concern? Well, if they work in a hospital and they're around people with COVID, I can understand that. I think that's a reasonable reason maybe to get it. But a lot of people will say, well, it's because I want to go see my parents and I want to get back to my regular normal life. And the reality is getting the vaccine right now doesn't give you back your normal life.
No, there won't be normal.
Right. So, the question I pose to them is that if you went out and got the flu vaccine today, the flu shot, does that mean that you can't get the flu? What's the answer?
I believe the answer is you can still get the flu.
You can still get the flu.
Correct.
And could you, if you got the flu vaccine, could you not know you had the flu and then give it to somebody else?
I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, exactly. So this is not different. There's no difference here. Like, we're talking about the same idea. Just because you get a COVID vaccine doesn't mean you can't get COVID. And just because you get the COVID vaccine doesn't mean you can't unknowingly give it to somebody else. Because if that were the case, people would be taking their masks off now, right? And people would be going back to their normal lives. The reality is that this isn't going to give us that, at least not right away. At least that's not what they want you to think, right? So we have to ask ourselves, what is the true benefit of getting this? This is the question I'll ask. What is the true reason that you want to get this vaccine? Are you concerned that if you get it, that your body and your immune system isn't going to be strong enough to fight this? Maybe you have a pre-existing condition. Maybe you're concerned that, if I do come into contact with this virus, I'm going to be that 0.008% that winds up in the hospital and has a bad reaction to the virus. But 99.91% of the people that get this virus, they do okay. And many of those people under the age of 80 have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. So is it worth the risk? Now, here are some statistics that I have heard. So according to VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Events Recording System, and this is a system that people report their vaccine injuries to. Right now, we're a little north of 300 deaths attributed to the COVID vaccine in about 6 weeks. All right, so if we're averaging maybe 50 a week, right? And that's at the beginning.
So approximately 300 people have died after being vaccinated.
According to the report.
According to the report.
According to the report. And this is a passive system. So these are people that are reporting that they got the shot, and then someone else is reporting on their behalf, not themselves, obviously, that they died, days or a week afterwards.
So let's just break this down. Let's just understand this. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
all right. Let's just unpack this. All right. So let's say Joe and Mary are a couple. Okay. Joe gets the vaccination, dies. These reports and numbers are from Mary reporting to the Vox. What's it called?
VAERS.
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 That Joe died.
Correct.
From the vaccination.
Correct.
Sounds like a game of telephone. But what do I know?
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't 100% say that the death is from the vaccine. They died after getting the vaccine.
Right.
Got it.
Could have been from anything. I think we have to look at that with the same skepticism that we look at total COVID deaths, which, if you are 90 years old and you're in the hospital dying and then you catch COVID, it may be considered a death from COVID, but in reality, it's actually you died and you happen to have COVID at the same time.
So let's just paint a terrible picture for a moment. Joe and Mary are walking down the streets in Connecticut, and Joe stumbles in a pothole, okay, and hits his head and dies.
Right.
However, he got vaccinated a week before.
Okay.
That death is included?
No, so this is a passive system. So this is not a system that, this is a system that the public will use to report. So it's not that your doctor's calling or your hospital is calling VAERS. This is the individual or the family that's calling on behalf of the patient, or the doctor. The doctor could be calling on behalf of the patient as well.
Okay,
but it's not. They call it a passive system.
Okay.
So here's the thing. According to Harvard, they did a study about 10 years ago, and they found that of the vaccine injuries that have been reported, and I'm going to cover a number in just a second, between 1% and 10% actually get reported to VAERS or get reported at all. So the numbers could be higher, but the other number that came out last week was that there was over 10,000 adverse events. Adverse events meaning
not deaths,
but severe reactions. People who had reactions that were worthy of being reported. Not the sore arm, but more the temporary paralysis or something that was serious, something that was worthy of being reported. The point behind what the statement that we're making here is that there is inherent risk in any vaccination that you get. And when there's a risk, there should always be a choice. I'm going to throw a number out there. The number is $4.5 billion. That's the amount of dollars that have been paid out to people who have been injured by vaccines since 1986. Many of your listeners may not know this, but vaccine manufacturers and medical doctors and pharmacists who deliver vaccines have zero liability for injury or death when it comes to delivering a vaccine. I'll say that again, zero liability, which means that if you get injured by a vaccine, you can't turn around and sue your medical doctor or the pharmacist or the pharmaceutical company for making the vaccine. You are not entitled to any payment from them. You are, however, entitled to payment from the U.S. government and if you're lucky, you might get $250,000.
Okay, so Chris gets vaccinated at the local CVS.
Correct.
Okay,
Did you get your $5 coupon for getting your vaccine?
I did.
Did you? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Make sure you get
That's
that.
why I went
I've
to that
seen-
CVS.
I've seen those signs. That is,
It's great.
Seattle hands out a
having-
bag of weed, I think. I'm serious.
Yeah, that really blows my mind seeing those signs at CVS that
Yeah.
for come take this, get a medication and get a discount on your shopping here
Or
for
a
anything
bag
else.
a week.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any kind of getting a vaccine or taking any medication should be a decision between someone and their doctor, and that's it. Not a store trying to.
Incentive, Ryan. Come on, man.
Incentive to shop.
Come on, dude. I got my bag of coupons. All right, I'm going to CVS.
I forgot we could swear. Oh.
So, you fucking swear.
yeah.
So Chris, so let's just say Chris walks into CVS with his coupons, okay? Gets the vaccination from the CVS pharmacist, which was Pfizer in this case.
Sure.
Pfizer vaccination. Okay, 2 days later, arm falls off, okay? Arm just falls off. So not only is the CVS corporation or the administering pharmacist liable, but neither is Pfizer, the developer of the vaccination. And there's 100% correlation between my fucking arm that's no longer there,
Right.
and the actual vaccine.
Correct.
No one is liable.
Nobody.
Why?
Why is that?
Why?
Because in 1986, there was a law that was passed that basically gave pharmaceutical companies carte blanche. And what the pharmaceutical companies said is, hey, listen, you want us to make vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, all these different childhood illnesses. That's fine. We're not going to take the heat when these kids get injured. So if you want us to make them, you got to pick up the tab for the injuries. And to date, we've paid out $4.5 billion. That's with a B, billion. And again, going back to the Harvard study, that represents 1 to maybe 10% of the people actually being reporting their injuries. That number could be between 1 and 10 times, between 10 and 100 times higher.
Goodness.
Right? So the point is that when we talk about these vaccines, the big question is do you have a choice? Should you have a choice? The issue we have right now in our state is that there are lawmakers that are trying to take away the one choice that we have in the state of Connecticut that allows you to say no is what's called a religious exemption, which means that you have the right under our Constitution to say that I do not want that product in my body. It violates my religion. People will then say, well, what is your religion? Well, you cannot ask that question as much as you cannot ask somebody about their personal
Okay,
health.
I'm triggered
Well,
if someone asks me my religion.
You should be offended.
I need a timeout card.
Right. But here's the thing. In our Constitution, both in our state and federal Constitution, it says that you don't have to belong to a specific religion in order to practice anything. You could worship this pen if you want.
I'm spiritual.
Right. As long as it's your
So that's
religious-
good.
Right.
I don't go to any church.
Right. Exactly. Because the churches out there, the Catholic Church, Jewish,
Mosques.
all the major religions have come out and said we have no problem
Temples.
with vaccination. That's fine. They can say that. The reality is that it's not your religion, it's your religious creed. It's what you personally believe, right? It violates your right. Right. So here's one of the arguments that people
Separation of church and state.
have. Absolutely. I mean, people 250 years ago came over here in this country in rickety boats for a reason.
Protestants.
Why? Because they wanted religious freedom. That is the reason why this country exists, is because people did not want a state-run religion.
Well, I believe it was Protestants in the 1600s, right?
Right. They were forced. They had no choice. Right, and then throughout Europe, they were being forced and persecuted for not practicing a certain religion.
For not being Catholic?
Christian, Catholic,
yeah.
Protestant, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So they came to this country on these rickety boats, right, and they started a country that allows you to practice your own religion, right. So when somebody tries to take that away from you, that's not a little thing. That doesn't just violate me as a parent, that violates all 3.5 million citizens of the state of Connecticut. Because here's what's at stake, guys. If they take that away, if they take that right away from you, from us, right? And then they decide, hey, you know what? This COVID vaccine, you're going to need to have this COVID vaccine for you to go to work, or for your kid to go to school, or for you to go see a concert or a sporting event.
Or to get on a plane.
Or get on a plane or a bus or a train. Then what?
Or check into a hotel.
Then what do you do?
And really glad that you and others are kind of fighting to keep this this right while it's still there. And also, you know, in my mind too, it's kind of scary that we need to have that to be able to say no to a medication if you don't want it. You know, you shouldn't have to say it's because of my religion. You should be able to say, I just don't want it. You know, that's
right.
You know,
choice.
And that's coming from someone who chose to get this vaccine. You know, you should be able to say yes or no, whichever works for you.
Absolutely. And so that's what Health Choice, that's our organization, is based upon. It's based upon your right to choose, right? You guys fought in wars to preserve our freedom. And I'm sorry, but you know, what bigger violation of freedom is there if you don't have the right to choose what goes into your own body? When you lose your right to choose what goes into your body or your child's body, I'm sorry, but that's not freedom. Right?
I agree.
And it kind of reminds you of history. I mean, there are points in history that this has happened. You know, and
several points. And
if most recently we go back to World War II, and we go back to Nazi Germany, and we look at what they've done there, and it's eerily similar. It's eerily similar and quite frightening when you think about the prospect of mass vaccination and then coercion on top of that to prevent you from living the life that you want to live, you know, the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, if you're being forced to do something against your will, I don't see that as being American at all.
Or freedom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's one of the concerns that we have. What we're seeing is we're seeing a blatant. We're seeing our media censor any information that we're trying to get out there. So anytime we talk about this, we can't get this information out. This information is completely silenced and censored because they don't want this to happen. They want to be able to have that control.
Do you know? I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you know Instagram actually tells me the reason? It tells me the reason why I have about 30% of views on my stories is because of the pandemic in Britain.
Really?
Yeah, it actually says that. I usually have about 500 to 600 people viewing my stories on Instagram. I have 30% right now.
Interesting.
And it tells you why.
Right.
But censorship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Censorship.
So, you know, there's always this thing where if you don't understand why something's happening, if something doesn't make sense to you, somebody's making money. Right? And think about if you can't answer a simple question like why is this happening? Why is this happening? Look at who's profiting. Look at who's making money. Follow the money on this. So if they take away your right to say no, they could add not only the COVID shot to the schedule, to the vaccine schedule, they could add numerous other shots. For instance, Moderna right now, as we speak, is working on an HIV shot. Well, I mean, raise your hand if you want HIV injected into your body.
Oh, nice.
Right. I mean, there's one. That would be their second vaccine, by the way. Just so you guys are aware, Moderna, their first vaccine, congratulations, guys, is the COVID shot. So, I mean, hey, good. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? This is their first vaccine. So, you know, I mean, you know,
is that the one you got, Ryan?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, you know, I think anyone, you know, getting this vaccine needs to weigh the risks, and sure. I did that. And you know, if you think you're completely safe of any adverse reaction happening, then you're lying to yourself. Yeah. So you know,
do you think so? No, please tell me, because I personally am not scared in the slightest. For either COVID or the vaccine.
Yeah, and you know what? For myself, not too scared of COVID. I'm healthy and take care of myself, even though I do have type 1 diabetes, which is putting me at higher risk for severe infection. But we also don't know long-term effects of COVID, and there are people with post-COVID syndrome that have a lot of long-term adverse effects from that. Something that comes up a lot, type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, right? My immune system destroyed the cells in my pancreas that make insulin, many different types of autoimmune diseases. So people who have autoimmune diseases are concerned. Could this vaccine or any vaccine cause another autoimmune disease in me? Definitely valid concern with that. And I kind of dove into that topic a bit before getting this, and it's complicated. Many viral infections are linked to autoimmune diseases. So there's that. Many viral infections are linked to are actually protective for autoimmune diseases. Strangely, there's even one lab now that's actually using an old vaccine, the BCG vaccine, to cure type 1 diabetes. So it's like, you can look in both directions and see pros and cons. So it's it's a tough thing to weigh and decide. And in my mind, my thought was, I would rather have this controlled immune response to the vaccine rather than potentially getting COVID and having something severe, and where I'm thinking probably wouldn't happen anyway, that I wouldn't be too severe with COVID, but I weighed out the
You did your Venn
facts
diagram.
that I know,
Yeah.
and I'm still watching everything. I'm not in denial that there might be something. I'm watching like Israel. We'll see that most of the countries being vaccinated there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And so far, it's looking okay. It's looking safe. But again, I'm with Matt that should be someone's decision. And as you can see the way I'm describing all of this, it's not a black or white decision.
No, it's all gray area.
It's all gray, and I think that for that reason, this and any if some lab were to come up with a diabetes drug right now in the past 6 months and would cure me of diabetes, I wouldn't go run out and get it. I would wait and see how this goes and what are the long-term effects of that. And with this COVID, we're not doing that. And there's reasons why, because of COVID. But it's definitely a complicated matter and something that people need to
weigh out their own
research,
options.
Weigh out their options. Talk to their doctor, hopefully a good doctor that can have a good conversation about it with them,
And they could talk to you guys, right?
they could definitely talk to us. I was talking to a patient this morning, coincidentally, who has retina bleeds. She's diabetic and has very severe retina bleeds. Like basically, the inside of her eye is full with blood, and it takes a long time for that to drain out. She's not leaving the house because if she were to get COVID, it would be very bad for her. She's waiting for the vaccine, and I think that's 100%. She should do that and hopefully protect her from a severe infection and damaging her eyes more or other things. Yeah.
I respect that explanation greatly, and I think the value that you bring with your background and situation, if you will, is vitally important for everyone, to include anyone listening. And I'm gonna ask Matt shortly, but before I do that, of his perspective for himself of why or why not, which we know you're not going to put the vaccine into your body.
Not at this point.
Right. Exactly. I'm going to offer mine. All right. I'm going to offer my perspective, and anyone that knows me knows I'm like an extraordinarily healthy person. And if you don't know me, I'm an extraordinarily healthy person. I go to the medical doctors once a year out of the annual checkup. I see my friends Ryan and Matt several times a month. And granted, they're not quote unquote MDs. However,
Thank God.
however, my school of thought is very holistic, especially in my practice of exercise science and nutrition. So my mindset is very similar to yours when it comes to how to work with the body. You guys are just far more advanced in your specialties. So understanding that, if you don't know who I am, is vitally important. Now, I'm 35. Matt, how long you know me? 10 years?
10 years.
How many times have you seen me sick?
0.
Right. I'm not sick. I am not a sick person. Why? I eat very healthy. I buy quality food. I eat very healthy. I exercise my body, not rigorously.
Rigor.
I can speak English.
I know.
You could speak Italian, right?
Un poquito.
Yeah, a little bit.
More Spanish.
Shwaya? Is it shwaya?
Yeah.
Arabic? Yeah. So long story short, not rigorously anymore. I do exercise 4 to 6 times a week in multiple different facets and modalities. But the point is,
Sleep well, I bet.
I sleep very well.
One of the most important things for your immune system and health.
I have a evening routine and a morning routine. My evening routine consists of foam rolling, stretching. I've also been trying to correct my interior tilt on my pelvis by laying on my back flat and keeping my legs at a 90-degree angle, which I read will help. I do that for 10 minutes. And then there's no more screens for Chris. Chris then goes into bed and starts reading or meditating before I go to bed. I have pulled the blue light from screens out of my life about 60 minutes prior to bed, which allows me to hit my proper REM cycles, which happens every 90 minutes, which is where the body actually heals itself in layman's terms.
Correct.
Okay. And you need approximately, I like to say 4 to 6 REM cycles a night. I think 6 REM cycles a night is about where I am without being measured, but just from my...
Every 90 minutes for 8 hours, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
For distance of sleep, my distance. So last night I fell asleep around 9:30. I was up at 5. Well, I was 4:55. But anyways, the point is I sleep like a baby for the most part. And you can ask anyone that knows me, if I don't sleep like a baby...
You don't shit yourself, do you?
I don't shit myself, but you don't want to be around me. You don't want to be around me.
Babies can be a little messy sometimes.
I can be a little messy too, just not in that facet. I just throw my food everywhere and so on and so forth. But the point is I sleep really well and I eat really well and I buy really good food and I exercise and amongst all else, I have a very tough and very positive mindset.
Yes.
Okay. My mindset is not perfect, but it's damn near. And of course, I have my intricacies when it comes to mindset, but I also have learned human psychology well enough to where usually I can catch myself and reframe things and kick the negative out. Okay. So I'm a healthy dude. Yeah. Okay. So it's a roll of the fucking dice, in my opinion. Okay. In my opinion, no one knows what COVID's going to be in the next 15 years. No one knows. The fear of the unknown. No one knows if the fucking virus was actually made in a lab or not. No one knows where this virus is going to be in 15 years. No one knows where the fucking vaccination is going to be in 15 years.
Right.
Yeah.
That are being implemented now.
But what do you have control over?
I have control over everything that I put in my body.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Okay? And the reason why I'm healthy and I've been teaching health, I've healed people through several different things, to include diabetes, to include cancer. Am I a doctor? No. Let's exercise the body. Let's sleep. Let's eat your proper foods, your micros, your macros. And you know what? Let's work on that mindset.
Right.
Most people don't even realize you can heal cancer through mindset.
Yep. You absolutely can.
There's studies. They put terminally ill cancer patients in front of comedies for a week straight. All of a sudden, they don't have cancer.
Yeah, on this note, like the three of us none of the three of us have gotten COVID
Correct.
this entire year. All three of us like you're talking about healthy people. All three of us work in health. All three of us around people this whole year too, right? Like,
At times, hundreds a day for me.
Yeah,
At the
yeah.
beginning of COVID.
And none of us got infected. And I think, I think that should be the goal of everyone to live healthier lives like we're doing.
Right.
For sure, there are outliers. Some very healthy people have gotten very sick, maybe even died. Outliers, though. The vast majority of very healthy people are doing okay after getting a COVID infection or not getting it at all.
Great, yeah.
And the vast majority of the kind of metabolically unhealthy people have very severe cases of COVID. Sure. And I think, this vaccine is going to hopefully get us over the hump here with COVID and hopefully go back to normal. But I don't believe the world is done with global pandemics. Maybe done with COVID this year, but others are going to come along. And unless we have this mindset to change our metabolic health and diet, lifestyle, sleep, all of this stuff, they're just going to keep coming like this.
Right.
And are we going to take another a year and a half off from the world every time we have a pandemic? We can't.
So let me jump in here for a second. So I want to just commend Chris on what he just said, and I'm going to commend you on what you just said. How many doctors in the past 10 months on television, or anybody for that matter, has told you that you should sleep more, that you should clean up your diet,
Take vitamin
that
D.
you should take vitamin D, vitamin C, selenium, zinc, anything that boosts your immune system? Where have you heard that information?
I've only heard it from you two.
Right. And if you try to put that out there, what happens?
You're going to get censored.
It gets shut down. Why the fuck is that happening?
Answer
that question out there, and then you've got the answer to what is going on right now in this country.
If the former president of the United States of America can be censored on social media,
Yeah.
so can fucking doctors with a decent message.
Why don't they want you to be healthy? Why aren't they giving you the information that you need to get yourself healthy? All they want you to do is vaccinate yourself. They're not telling you that you should go out there, maybe you should sleep better, maybe you should get off your fat ass and exercise.
Yeah.
But instead, what we do all day is we sit on Zoom calls, and then more and more people are sitting around, and here's the bigger problem. Do you know why we're not getting sick? It's because we're not in fear. We're not in stress.
Oh, mindset.
What do people do?
Oh, interesting.
What do most people do all day? Yeah, mindset. And if your mindset is to sit in front of the television and get spoon-fed garbage and lies all day long, what are you going to walk away with? People are walking around in fear
With dog shit.
all day. Fear is the biggest issue that we have, because that's what gets people sick, right? Increased stress response destroys your immune system. It prevents you from getting that REM sleep that you were talking about so beautifully, right? That's the problem. The other issue is that now we're being told the only way this is going to get better is if we take a vaccine. All right, well, that may be a temporary solution. And guess what? Guess what the United States and our healthcare system is really good at? Temporary solutions.
Yeah.
Well, that's reactive.
Taking care of symptoms. The best thing that a vaccine, any vaccine, will do for anybody, and this is what they state in their literature, is it is going to reduce your symptoms. That's the best that they can offer.
Reactive.
That's it. We need to start realizing that we have to start taking responsibility for ourselves. And hopefully what this pandemic has done, and this is what I share with my patients, is that it's been a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for us to start looking at our own health. Because the reality is like, as Ryan was just saying, this isn't the first, and it's certainly not going to be the last pandemic that we're going to have to deal with, right? There are more coming. And the only way that you're going to have a chance of surviving is by keeping your body healthy, period. It should be a priority, not I'm going to go run out and get a vaccine. That's not making you healthier. I'm sorry. That's not the way it works. It's a artificial, temporary solution. It is not the answer to the problem. It may give you some level of protection. That's fine, and if that's what you need, that's great. But that doesn't absolve you from the reality that you should be exercising, that you should be eating well, that you should be sleeping, and if you listen to America's frontline doctors, what if there was a treatment? Think about this question for a second. What if there was a treatment for COVID, right? Would we need a vaccination? What's the answer? The answer is no. The reason why we have vaccinations...
Oh, proactive, Matt?
Well, maybe, but here's the reason why we have vaccinations in the first place. We have vaccinations because in the past, we had viruses that were highly transmissible and highly deadly. And they needed a vaccine to prevent that from happening. But this also happened in a time where we did not have good sanitation, good plumbing, good, proper hygiene, water, nutrition,
Infrastructure. 1300s.
Right.
Black Plague.
No, even as more recent as 50 years ago. But there's still places on the planet that fall into this category. If I'm going to sub-Saharan Africa, I may want to get a couple of shots. There are
Like Iraq,
exceptions,
Ryan?
like Iraq.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Had a couple.
Okay.
Get a couple.
That was, 15 years ago?
Here's the thing. Getting back to the point that I was making is that if there was a treatment for this particular COVID, right, would we need the vaccine? The answer is no, because we have a treatment for it. And if we had a treatment and even a prevention, would we need the vaccine? The answer is no.
The answer is absolutely not.
Right. So, but we've heard about this hydroxychloroquine, and we've heard about this ivermectin. But every time you hear about it, what happens? Anybody who talks about it, what happens to them? They get shut down. They get censored. Look up America Frontline Doctors. The listeners that are out there, Google America's Frontline Doctors. Google American Association of Physicians and Surgeons. These are two organizations of medical doctors who are out there screaming from the rooftops. Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. These two...
And this is not a new topic.
This is not a new topic. These are not even new drugs. And we know that it works because if you look at regions of the world where COVID was present but didn't spread, it was in the areas where people take these particular drugs on a regular basis. So just for education, hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malaria drug. So places in the world where malaria is pretty common, the locals take it regularly, right? And they don't get malaria. Well, guess what else? Guess what else they didn't get? They didn't get COVID.
Huh.
Right? Because this particular drug, by the grace of God, happens to block these spike proteins, right? But here's the problem with it, guys. Well, everyone was probably asking, well, why wouldn't they give it? I mean, well, here's the reason why. Guess how much it costs to administer hydroxychloroquine? About
50 cents.
Yeah, less, 30 cents.
30 cents.
Right.
Interesting.
Wow. Not a lot of money to be made in something that costs 30 cents. Sorry. But here's the thing. Even if you don't want to put a medication into your body, what they've also found is that the combination of vitamin D, quercetin, zinc, vitamin C, and selenium does the same thing.
Which is what my dietitians and I use in my nutrition company with any of our clients that get COVID.
Yes.
Dietitian, meaning background of nutrition.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
I think that was a fantastic explanation, Matt. And I think we're gonna answer your question, but before we answer the question, you mentioned fear. And if anyone wants to understand how to move past fear, which is fundamentally an emotion, correct?
Correct.
Listen to episode 82 of the CW Clinic and learn how to step aside from fear, which I have almost completely, and I teach you how to do it as well. If you watch the television, you ever seen that meme or the picture that's been drawn? I think it was in the 70s. It's an old box television up on a second story of an apartment, and there's a tube coming out of it into the minds of the people watching, and there's a guy up on top where the TV's connected to a toilet. So the point is, what is being pictured is someone is shitting into a toilet, which is the television, and it's feeding right into your mind. That is why you have fear. Because you're consumed with media and social media.
Right.
We have two doctors explaining both sides of the coin here, which this might even get censored, but at least we tried. At least we tried.
Truth is out.
Truth is out. So, explanation outstanding. Ryan, did you have a follow-up to that?
No, just back to the taking care of yourself and taking care of our health. Do you know how much percent of our country is normal weight, normal BMI?
Less than 40%?
Yeah. And being
Of adults,
of adults,
not children under the age of 12.
Childhood obesity is skyrocketing.
Has it hit 80% yet?
And and I'm sure being on lockdown for a year is making this much worse.
Right, because you couldn't exercise or
Because
eat healthy.
Being overweight or obese is a huge risk factor for severe COVID.
North of 60% of Americans that are adult age, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's not talked about.
No. Why not?
Well, we don't really talk about any of these healthy measures, but, if you were to say, hey, you're in a high risk group because you're overweight, people get offended by that.
They are offended quite often, which is just projection.
Yeah.
For the most cases. Most offense is projection.
We're harming people by not
Educating
being
them.
able to educate them on that. Like, for example, if you're not stopped from saying something like, hey, if you have asthma, you're at a higher risk.
Right.
But you can't say that about someone for being overweight, and we should be able to. And the three of us are people that help people in those situations lose weight and get healthier all the time. And there's help out there for people to lose weight, but it's not talked about.
I remember, do you guys remember the Richard Simmons era?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger was playing like Predator in the late 80s, early 90s? Arnold Schwarzenegger and I believe it was Reagan would go on, the former president of the United States of America, would go on TV together. And Schwarzenegger would teach America to be healthy and to do push-ups with the kids and run sprints outside with the kids and teach the Americans health. That was right before the monstrous increase in fast food in America.
Oh, yeah.
In the late 80s with McDonald's and Burger King. And right before the majority of Americans are considered overweight.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of complications here, and mostly the situation that it comes down to is the proper education doesn't have the avenues of approach on mainstream medias anymore.
Why do you think they don't like chiropractors? Why do you think they don't respect chiropractors and naturopaths?
I would have something to say if they disrespected you too.
Well, you shouldn't. But here's the good news. More and more people are respecting us because we're speaking out and we're speaking the truth. And we are the doctors who are the educators, right? Because that's what doctor means. Most people think doctor means that you're a healer of some sort. That's not the case.
You're an educator.
We're an educator. That is the implicit definition of a doctor, is an educator. The problem is that when you go to a traditional medical doctor these days, are you getting educated or are you getting indoctrinated?
Let me give you an example. You've heard this example.
Okay.
The last time I went to a medical doctor for a problem was because I thought I tore my bicep. You've heard this. I think you've heard this. Thought I've tore my bicep. I'm a tough bastard. Like, I don't have to go through my resume. I'm a tough guy. I thought my bicep was torn. So I went to the medical doctor because I knew I was going to need probably an MRI of some sort. Medical doctor sits me down, says, Chris, good news, your bicep's not torn. I was like, oh, thank God. What is it? Tendinitis. I said, oh, tendinitis. No kidding. Overuse, huh? Yeah, it looks like you exercise. Yeah, you could say that. I exercise. A little bit. It's been for I'm 35, so I started when I was 12. So for 23 years now, I've been exercising. And the doctor says to me, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take ibuprofen, 800 milligrams, 5 times a day. It was one or the other. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, doctor, hold on a second. What about my liver? And she goes, oh, no, just drink water with it.
Don't worry about that.
And make sure you eat food. And I said, well, hold on a second. This is reactive. Can we talk about the proactive treatment? Keep in mind, I'm in the presence of a medical doctor. I don't want to disrespect them. However, there's a monster piece that they're missing. In this case, And this is with me. And I said, well, let me understand this. If it's tendinitis, if I were to draw back my sugar in my diet, would that do anything? Oh, yeah, you could do that too. I said, well, I eat an abundance of fruit, naturally occurring sugar, so maybe I could adjust it from about 150 grams a day, down to whatever I said. She said, yeah, that would probably work. And I said, okay, I thank you for your time, doctor. And that's, in my opinion, is the perfect explanation of exactly what you just said.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
No, I mean, that's a great example of what I'm saying.
And by no means do I think I know more than medical doctors.
No, but that's the thing is we pedestalize our doctors. I mean, I get that. But the reality is that right now, the system that we work in, the medical system, is really focused on symptomatology. Now, I'm not going to blast the entire system because I think that for emergencies, we're the best country in the world for emergencies and trauma. We kick ass in that. What we are horrible at is keeping people well. Chronic illness. 54% of Americans right now are chronically ill. What that means is that they are on one or more medications for an illness that they cannot get rid of. That is more than 50% of Americans. We're actually climbing closer to 60%. The number has been skyrocketing over the past 30 years. The number of children under the age of 18, 30% of kids under the age of 18 are chronically ill.
And you've battled this yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And the problem is that these numbers weren't there 30 years ago. 30 years ago, something changed. And if you want to take a look at something alarming.
Yeah, fast food.
Well, there's fast food. There's also fast medicine.
Yes.
All right. So most of the people that are listening to this program are at what age?
24 to 35.
24 to 35. So the 24-year-olds are going to be in one category. The 35-year-olds are going to be in another category. So just go Google vaccination doses for over the past 30 years. So in the 1960s, the average person got 3 doses. In the 1980s, the average person got 13 doses. Oof. Now, children are getting 72 doses, starting from about 1996 and on. So 24, 25-year-old.
Gen Y.
So 72 doses versus I got 13, you got 13, you got 13, our parents got 3. And then we're also seeing this incredible rise in chronic illness. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe it's the rise in fast food. Maybe it's the fact that we're getting pumped with a bunch of chemicals, right? But why not look at that? Why not do the study? And there have been studies out there. There have been studies. There was actually a doctor out in Oregon last year who finally completed a 20-year study of vaccinated versus unvaccinated kids. And the unvaccinated group had significantly fewer issues neurologically, from autism to Asperger's to ADD to ADHD to allergies. And how many kids have allergies these days? The unvaccinated group were significantly lower than the vaccinated group. Guess what happened to that study?
Censored?
Censored. Guess what happened to that doctor?
Decapitated.
No, well, pretty much he can't practice anymore.
So legally decapitated.
Legally decapitated.
Goodness gracious.
Again, the reality is that there's a lot of information out there that people should be aware of when it comes to vaccination, which is what we were talking about in the first place. Do a little research. Google vaccine studies. There's a couple of websites that I'll post later. They'll give you information too. One of the sites that you can check out though that has a lot of this information is the organization that I belong to. It's ctforaction.org. It's ct4action.org, and it has a lot of information on there about different vaccines, vaccine studies, and things that people should be aware of.
We're going to put all of the associated .coms, socials, and links in the show notes.
Cool.
So show notes definitely. So that will be in the show notes, Matt.
Cool.
And I think, and did I cut you off?
Nope.
I think on that note, what we're going to do here is we're going to figure out where the audience can find you. Okay. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you both to give a final piece of advice.
Yep.
Okay. And then we're going to close it out. Does that sound good? So And before we talk about socials and how to find you two extraordinary gentlemen, I want to ask a favor of everyone listening. Everyone, okay? If you've gotten through this interview to this point, okay, I ask you out of the generosity of your heart, because these two gentlemen are donating their time, and twice now, to educate everyone. If you believe in anything either of these two have to say, share this with someone, whether it's your friends, your family, your social medias. Help this message get out. Our message gets out the more you subscribe, share, like, repost, and anything that you do is better than nothing, and we're all three of us are grateful for. And I thank you
Absolutely.
for everything that you're doing to help us get this out, because this is important for everyone to understand all sides of the coin. Ryan brings his perspective, Matt brings his perspective, and I always bring mine. So on that note, gentlemen, let's start with Ryan. Where can they find you?
They can find me physically in Fairfield, Connecticut, practicing.
Yes.
Online. Pretty much all my social media and everything is via my website. You can link to it, www.drattar, DRATTAR.com. And you can find me there.
Yeah, you have any Instagrams or?
It's all linked through there, but
Okay.
I have a professional Facebook page.
So
and an
go to
Instagram
your.
and
got
and you
it.
can get those from there. Yeah.
Okay. Matt,
All right.
where can you've got all of them like me.
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
But at Dr. Paterna, DRPATERNA, would be for Instagram and Twitter, and at Shoreline Family Cairo for Facebook. And personal, if you want to just reach out to me personally, I'm fine with that too. It's Matt, M-A-T-T, Paterna, D.C. on Facebook. And our website is drpaterna.com.
You got a big audience on that Facebook.
Pretty big, yeah.
It's arguably the size of mine,
Yeah,
if not bigger.
we're out there.
You're bigger, Matt.
I don't know if I'm bigger, but we're working towards it.
You influence a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And so do you, Ryan. Taking nothing away from Ryan. I've just been watching Matt's audience for a decade. Did I interrupt?
No, not at all. Did you want us to conclude with a
Yeah. So, and guys, you can find me at chriswarns.com, chriswarns_OG on Instagram, and Christopher Warns on Facebook. You guys can find Downtime. Mike, where can we find you, Mike?
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, DowntimeTV. Everywhere actually.
We're everywhere. Nice. We're everywhere. And, on that note.
I love your podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You've been on it more than anybody else.
Oh, really? This is my third.
This is your third time. Well, it's technically your fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth, right. But
Technically your fourth. Damn Pfizer. Shutting us down. You have, and thank you. I appreciate that. We're in our third year now.
yeah.
Third year. So Ryan, if you were to leave everyone with a last word of advice or words of advice, what would it be?
Sure. First, I also really enjoy your podcast.
Thank you.
The past, you've asked me to review and share and stuff, and I tell you, yeah, of course I will. Not just because I'm your friend, but because I actually enjoy your listening. Same with Downtime. You guys are great, and
Thanks, bro.
anyone listening to this that hasn't checked out the rest of their stuff is great. Great
Excellent.
interviews
Thanks,
and great
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Appreciate you, guys.
My take home here is diet, exercise, sleep.
Huh.
Work on those things. Talk to a professional that knows about those things, and most of our chronic ailments disappear.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Matt.
I'm going to leave you with this. If you want this pandemic to end, it's pretty easy. Turn off the TV. Take off your mask. See your friends and relatives. Hug them. Open your businesses. Go to restaurants. Live your life. Get back to it.
Powerful. Powerful. Guys, thank you so much. We'll catch you next week.